let's go through each muscle group. I want to hear your thoughts on what you would be your go-to exercise if you had to choose one. So
Okay.
for chest, what would your go-to exercise be if you could only do one?
Do you want the answer as like my real favorite exercise on average over time, or something realistic that other people can typically get access to?
No, what you like? What is your go-to?
The incline cambered bar bench press. The cambered bar allows you, it's got this little camber
Oh yeah.
thing, which is like a divot, and you can press super deep. That pec stretch is just unbeatable. It's pretty close to objectively the best chest exercise you could do if you had to pick one, but it's one of my personal favorites. And the camber bar is, if you've never used it and you've trained chest, you do one set with it close to failure and you'll get some of the best pump you've ever gotten in your life. Definitely for one set, but even compared to 5 sets of regular lifting, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? It's a big deal.
Shoulders. Like if we're talking, because I know you've got the front, mid, and rear delt, but if you had to, I
Yeah.
guess your front delt is getting the stimulation from the pressing.
Yep.
So
And I think
something
rear delts get a lot of stimulation from back work.
for
So
mid
for
delts,
side delts. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I would have to say the free motion machine or regular cable machine, where you do lateral raises. You set the cable height at about hip level, where your arms just dangle, and doing side raises like that out to the side. You get a crazy peak tension at the bottom, the super stretch, and the top has almost no tension at all. And we're learning now that a lot of tension and long muscle length, stretched out muscles, is the best way to grow muscle, seemingly. And that exercise, both from an internal perspective of how it makes me feel and from a theoretical perspective, is difficult to beat. I don't know, it's lame because it's not some barbell thing, but I would be proud to say in public.
Back.
Back's a tough one because I think one exercise for back is a tough call. But I would have to say one exercise for back. Jeez.
I'd probably go for T-bar row.
T-bar row is a really good answer. T-bar row, chest supported row. There's Prime makes an excellent row machine, which ultra exaggerates the super deep stretch and then is easy at the peak contraction. I'd say that a cambered bar row or even a barbell row for me has always done wonders for my shit. The barbell row is kind of cool because it at least decently trains all three major functions or components of your back. Because if you look at back training, there's like lats, which is mostly vertical pulling. That's the best way to train lats, like pull ups, pull downs, lat prayers, things like that. And then there is the component of the mid back and kind of the rhomboids and mid traps. Rowing can't be fucked with. It's the best way to train that. But then there's also the spinal erectors, which take up a huge fraction of your back. And if those are big and gnarly, it makes your back look really, really superhuman. And that you can't get a lot of spinal erector work out of like a chest supported row done strict, because the chest support takes your spinal erectors out of the equation. Good news is you get to focus on the other shit. Bad news is they don't get a lot of training. So even a barbell bent over row where you sink really deep at the bottom, and then when you're coming up you raise your torso gently a little bit so that you're not limited by how much you can touch your tummy with. It adjusts the angle for you, making it really hard at the bottom, easier at the top. A bent row, strict bent row like that, I think, as a one exercise for the whole back, it's not the ideal exercise for any specific part of the back, but it hits the lats decently. It hits the mid back really well, and it hits the spinal erectors too, because you have to spinally erect yourself. It sounds weird, against the load. And then, so to me, barbell bent row, because it's kind of the jack of all trades back exercise, it really is. I think so kind of the way I answer this question myself in my head is like, if I'm at like a resort, I'm on vacation, and there's just not a lot of gym equipment, what would I like to see? I'd like to get a fucking barbell at least, so that I can do things like a barbell row. Because if I just do a bunch of rows for at least a week, the back is green checked, like it's check marked, it's good, we're good to go. Whereas if I only have access to pull-ups, hey, I'm going to get a great lat workout, great teres major workout, but the spinal erectors, the mid back is essentially entirely left alone. It cannot be called a complete back exercise.
Mm-hmm. Biceps.
I have a new favorite: the lying. You almost never see this, lying dumbbell curl. So you lie down on a bench and a
Like,
flat bench. And you got dumbbells here, and you slowly stretch and touch the ground, and then you curl up and slowly stretch and touch the ground, kind of reaching forward as you do it. Exposes the biceps to maximum tension at their longest length, and is just unreal. It gives me predictable, repeated, delayed onset bicep soreness, which almost no other exercise has been able to give me. And I've been doing it for a few weeks, and I literally, my friend Jared noticed that I got a stretch mark on my bicep in the middle of a set. He was looking at it as it was blowing up and becoming more red. I was like, all right, I'm sold. So that's a great exercise. It looks a little goofy, and you almost never see not even really any demonstration videos of it on the internet. But I think it's the goated exercise for bicep.
how does that happen? You playing around and experimenting, or did you and the team do a bit of research and strategically come up
No,
with it?
so we're pretty familiar with the basic research, but I forgot how the fuck it came up. I think one of my friends, maybe even Scott the video guy, was like, "Oh, like, well, if you did it lying down," and I was like, "Motherfucker!" And
Scott,
then
the
I tried
video
it, and I was
guy.
like, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is the shit. And then he tried it later, and he was like, dude, my biceps are fucked, and they're almost never fucked. So yeah, basically just playing around. And I was doing some incline curls at the time, and I noticed that like the lower I dip the seat, the more bicep stretch. And I was like, wait a minute. Okay, let me lie down. And I was like, okay, this is really gnarly. And it's weird because you lie down with dumbbells and you're doing curls, people are looking at you like, you're doing chest presses wrong, by the way. And it works incredibly well.
What about triceps?
I don't do this exercise because I've become jacked enough to have very limited range of motion. But the easy bar behind the neck tricep extension, standing or seated, is phenomenal. It works every part of the tricep and a huge deep stretch. And it's just unreal. Like one of the best exercises you could ever do for triceps.
Quads?
Um, yeah, I would say a very well designed leg press is tough to fuck with. For spirit energy and vibes, high bar squat all the way, front to back. But for just quad specific hypertrophy with a small amount of fatigue, a really like Arsenal has a really, really well built leg press. Like it's just tough to fuck with that thing. Another honorable mention, maybe even better, is a belt squat. Belt squat properly done just is no axial fatigue. There's no fatigue to your spine because the belt goes on your hips, and you can just zap your quad. So maybe even I would retract that. Belt squat's probably my favorite movement there.
And then last two, hamstrings and glutes.
For hamstrings, stiff legged deadlifts or good mornings are really tough to fuck with, but every kind of hamstring curl is awesome. As long as I get a nice deep stretch in the hamstring, I really find hamstring training to be one of the, dare I say, easiest or most straightforward muscles for me to train. Is it's a biarticulate muscle, which means it crosses the knee and the hip across two joints. So if you position your body appropriately, you can load it under a crap load of stretch super easy, and it just takes tons of tension, it takes tons of damage, and it grows really easily. So for me, hamstrings, like I kind of do whatever. I just have a huge pet peeve about leg curl machines, which don't let you get a big stretch at the bottom. I just like, get super pissed about that. I have to stack up pads and shit like that. So you can avoid all that by doing good mornings or stiff legged deadlifts because the stretch is inevitable. But you have to do them properly, because improperly done, they're just really no good, and they're just like a back exercise or something like that.
And then glutes.
Okay. Um, Front foot elevated Smith machine lunges. Um, Enough stability from the Smith machine to produce lots of force. Front foot elevation pre-stretches that glute. I can get instant soreness from that if I haven't done it in a few weeks. Like one set later, I'm like, oh my God, my glutes are cramping and I'm just sore right away. I will say that a really cool tip for folks to try is that back foot. Typically, people will stand on their toes. What I like to do is on that back foot, I like to put my foot down. So my toes actually, like my big toe nail, will be touching the ground. That way, you can't push off that back leg. It's just for stability. Or you put a slide board behind it and you put the little slider shoes on and you slide back with that back leg. If you push off with the back leg a lot, it's cool and all, but it doesn't really train your glutes because they're not positioned to be lengthened and contracted at the same time. Glute training in lunges is a matter of that front leg. And so the more you can emphasize that front leg by being real easy, just tapping the ground with that back leg, getting a big, deep stretch, that's the way to get the most out of lunges. And that variety of lunges and a variety of other front foot elevated lunges, I have not found a glute exercise better than that.